Hello and welcome to our channel. I'm Abdul Rahim, and today we're taking a calm, in-depth look at 12 key things you need to know about Jacob, also called Israel, the father of the 12 tribes. Throughout, we'll compare how Judaism, Christianity, and Islam each tell his story, and we'll read the exact verses in the Torah, the Bible, and the Quran that highlight both the shared threads and the unique details in each tradition. Before we begin, please like, subscribe, and share this video. Let us know in the comments what you learn and which part of Jacob's story touches you most. Now let's dive in. 1. Jacob's miraculous birth and the womb prophecy. Context and story. Isaac and Rebekah, Jacob's parents, had prayed for children for decades. When Rebekah finally conceived, she carried twins, Esau first, then Jacob, against every natural expectation. Torah, Genesis 25:23. God tells Rebekah, 2 nations are in your womb. The older shall serve the younger. This prophecy upends cultural norms. The firstborn would not inherit supremacy. Bible, Romans 9:12. Paul reminds us, the older shall serve the younger, showing the early church saw God's election as sovereign, not based on human birth order. Quran 37:112-113. And we gave him good tidings of Isaac, and we blessed him and Isaac. Islam highlights God's blessing on Abraham's offspring, implicitly including Jacob, even before their deeds. Reflection. All 3 faiths teach that God's purposes often precede and override human expectations. From before birth, Jacob's life was woven into a divine plan, reminding us that our true identity rests in God's election, not our circumstances. Number 2. Jacob's ladder dream at Bethel. Context and story. Fleeing Esau's wrath, Jacob slept on a stone at Bethel. In a dream, he saw a ladder from earth to heaven, with angels ascending and descending, and heard God renew the Abrahamic covenant. Torah, Genesis 28:12-15. God promises Jacob land, descendants, and presence. I am with you and will watch over you. Bible, Hebrews 11:21. Jacob's faith is praised. By faith he worshipped, leaning on the top of his staff. Quran, prophetic vision theme. Though the latter isn't mentioned, the Quran affirms that God communicates with his prophets through visions, e.g. Joseph's dreams in Surah 12. Reflection. The dream symbolizes God's bridge to us, even in exile. All 3 traditions value divine visions as real encounters. Jacob's ladder teaches that no matter how alone we feel, God's promise still reaches us. 3. Jacob's marriages and the birth of his 12 sons. Context and story. At Haran, Jacob loves Rachel but is tricked into marrying Leah. He then marries Rachel, and by the sisters and their maidservants fathers 12 sons, future tribal heads. Torah, Genesis 29-30. Detailed narrative of labor, love, rivalry, and the origin of Reuben through Benjamin. Bible, Acts 7:9. Stephen recalls how God multiplied him and made him fruitful. Quran 38:40-47. Jacob's progeny are praised among the righteous, though specifics are fewer. Reflection. God's blessing can flow through messy human relationships. While only the Torah gives the full drama, all 3 agree those 12 sons became Israel's tribes, showing God can build a nation from imperfect families. Jacob's struggle for the birthright and blessing. Context and story. Esau sells his birthright for stew. Later, with Rebekah's help, Jacob obtains Isaac's blessing intended for the firstborn. Torah, Genesis 27, the deception and its fallout, Esau's bitter cry. Bible, Matthew 15:24. Jesus says he was sent to the lost sheep of Israel, linking the covenant to Jacob's line. Quran 2:133 mentions Jacob's family inheriting Abraham's promise, underscoring divine choice over human bargaining. Reflection. Human schemes intersect with divine sovereignty. The episode teaches that God's covenant will advance, sometimes through unexpected or flawed means, but always according to his will. 5. Jacob's flight to Haran and years of service. Context and story. Terrified of Esau, Jacob escapes to his uncle Laban, working 14 years for Rachel and wealth. Torah, Genesis 29:1-14. Vivid account of Jacob meeting Rachel and agreeing to serve. Bible, Hebrews 11:9. By faith he lived as an alien in the land of promise. Quran 12:56. In Joseph's story, Jacob's patient endurance is commended. He said, "You do not know how we value Joseph." Reflection. Exile and hard labor shape character. All 3 traditions honor patience under trial. Jacob's Haran years prepare him for leadership. 6. Wrestling at Peniel, becoming Israel. Context and story. On return, Jacob wrestles with a mysterious man until dawn. He emerges limping and is renamed Israel. Torah, Genesis 32, verse 24-30. Your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and men and have prevailed. Bible, Galatians 4:6. God has sent the Spirit of His Son into our hearts, echoing intimate struggle. Quran 12:7. Though the wrestling isn't detailed, Jacob's steadfast faith amid hardship is celebrated. Reflection. Our spiritual struggles refine us. Jacob's new name teaches that wrestling with God can transform our identity and destiny. 7. Reconciliation with Esau. Context and story. Expecting violence, Jacob instead finds Esau running to embrace him. Torah, Genesis 33:4. Esau ran to meet him, embraced him, and wept. Bible, Luke 15:20. The father's embrace of the prodigal son echoes this mercy. Quran, Joseph forgives his brothers, put your hand under my thigh, paralleling restored trust. Reflection. Forgiveness breaks cycles of hurt. All three traditions show reconciliation as a divine value stronger than vengeance. 8. Jacob's final blessings on his sons. Context and story. On his deathbed, Jacob gives each son a poetic, prophetic blessing. Torah, Genesis 49:1-28. Detailed blessings foretelling each tribe's character. Bible, Hebrews 11:21. By faith Jacob blessed each of Joseph's sons. Quran 2:132. Abraham's legacy passed to his sons, including Jacob. Reflection. Words spoken in faith shape futures. Jacob's blessings remind us that our final testimonies can echo for generations. 9. Jacob's death and burial. Context and story. Jacob dies peacefully in Egypt, requests burial in Canaan, and is laid to rest at Machpelah. Torah, Genesis 49:33-50-13. Embalming, procession, and interment in the family cave. Bible, Matthew 8:11. Many from east and west will recline with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Quran 19:40-50 mentions Jacob's passing and unwavering faith. Reflection. A life anchored in covenant finds rest in sacred promise. His burial in the promised land symbolizes trust beyond death. 10. Jacob's enduring legacy in three faiths. Judaism. Jacob is Israel, patriarch of the Jewish people. His struggles and blessings define a nation's identity. Christianity, cited in Hebrews' Hall of Faith as an example of trust and vision. Islam. Yaqub is honored as a prophet whose patience, devotion, and family leadership illustrate God's sustaining grace. 11. Jacob's dream of protection. Context and story. Years after Jacob settled his family in Egypt, he faced the reality of living as a foreigner in a strange land. Egypt was prosperous, but it was not the land of promise. In the midst of this uncertainty, God visited Jacob in a dream, assuring him that the covenant promise still stood, that Jacob and his descendants would be safeguarded and eventually return to Canaan. Torah, Genesis 46:2-4. And God spoke to Israel in the visions of the night and said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, Here I am. Then he said, I am God, the God of your father. Do not fear to go down to Egypt, for I will make you a great nation there. I will go down with you to Egypt, and I will also bring you up again, and Joseph will close your eyes. Explanation. God personally calls Jacob by name, an intimate gesture, and repeats the promise made to Abraham and Isaac. He guarantees both presence, I will go down with you, and future deliverance, I will bring you up again. Bible, Acts 7:13-15. Then there came a famine over all the land, and Abram went down to Egypt and dwelt there. But God was with him and delivered him out of all his afflictions. Explanation. Stephen's speech connects Abraham's and Jacob's experiences in Egypt. Though addressed to Abraham here, the principle applies. When God's people enter exile, he remains with them and rescues them in his timing. 12:100. And we raised the family of Joseph to high ranks in the land, to the level of Pharaoh's own household, and they took up residence in the land which we have blessed for the worlds. Explanation. The Quran emphasizes that Joseph's entire family, led by Jacob, received God's blessing and protection in Egypt. Their preservation and prosperity testify to God's faithfulness, even away from the promised homeland. Reflection. Even in foreign lands, whether geographical exile, career setbacks, or relational hardships, God's promise remains. He accompanies us into every challenge and ultimately brings us safely through. Jacob's dream reminds us that divine presence is not limited by location, and that God holds the future, even when our circumstances seem uncertain. 12. Applying Jacob's lessons today. Context and story. We've walked through Jacob's life, his miraculous birth, visionary dreams, complex family, spiritual wrestlings, and final assurances. Each episode reveals facets of faith, character, and covenant that transcend time. Modern application: trust God's timing. Jacob's example: he waited decades for God's promise to Abraham to unfold in his own life, first in birth, then in covenant renewals. Today, when we pray and see no immediate answer, we can remember Jacob's patience. Often, God is at work behind the scenes, orchestrating events before we perceive his hand. Persevere in exile. Jacob's example: 14 years of hard labor for Laban refined Jacob's character and prepared him for leadership. Today, in career challenges, difficult relationships, or seasons of waiting, perseverance builds resilience. Our trials can cultivate humility, wisdom, and strength. Embrace reconciliation. Jacob's example: despite betrayal and fear, Jacob chose to reconcile with Esau, modeling vulnerability and forgiveness. Today, when relationships fracture, whether with family, friends, or colleagues, we can take the first step toward peace, trusting that forgiveness heals wounds and restores community. Speak blessings. Jacob's example: on his deathbed, Jacob's words shaped the destiny of 12 tribes. Today, our words carry power. Encouraging a child, affirming a friend, or blessing a teammate can have lasting impact. Let us choose to speak life, hope, and purpose into the lives around us. Unified message: through struggle, patience, and reconciliation, Jacob's life proclaims the power of God's covenant. Though each tradition highlights different episodes, all three converge on the truth that God remains faithful to his promises, and that human hearts, no matter how flawed, can become vessels of divine blessing. Conclusion: thank you for joining me on this exploration of Jacob, Israel, father of the 12 tribes. Which moment resonated most with you? Share your thoughts below. If you found this video meaningful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us bring these stories to life. Until next time, I'm Abdul Rahim. Stay blessed and keep faith in your journey.